Hello, everybody.
Hello.
What is up?
So, this is another Charlie video. I'm sorry. I can't help it, because if you saw my last update video, I got cast as Mr. Salt in the Willy Wonka play I'm in, because the group I joined is apparently a very revered place in our area.
Congratulations once again. Let's all applaud.
Sponsored by a very major theater, so... Yeah, I got Mr. Salt, and also Gene Wilder passed away, which ironically was on the day I auditioned for the play.
That's kind of unfortunate, but like, what's the opposite of serendipitous? I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. Moving on. Yeah.
So, as a celebration for me getting the role, as well as honoring the late Gene Wilder and all of his glorious roles like Blazing Saddles and, of course, the titular Wonka, we're going to kind of do a Now Where They At? Talk about the Wonka people. Now, I know people have done the videos like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory kids, where are they now? But this is where the characters would be now.
Right, yeah, not the actors, but the people where, in theory, based on what we know about them, realistically, where they probably are ending up in terms of their career choices, their family life, if applicable, and other things.
So, let's see. Yes, and of course this is all speculation, and we are clarifying, we're using the Charlie version, because the Wonka versions apparently died, according to people. So, and besides the Charlie versions, as we explained in our last video, are much, much more developed.
Yeah, the characters are actually much more, like, characters.
So we can actually talk about them and explain what happens. So, yes. And this so basically, like we said, we're going to explain their family life and all that's their jobs and everything that we think will happen to them.
Yep. Just
kind of by speculation. This is purely for fun, and we had a little bit of a conversation about this earlier, and we came up with a lot of really interesting points. So...
And maybe we'll come up with more while we're talking here.
I'm sure we will. Now, pick a number between 1 and 5.
4.
Alright, 4. Augustus Gloop. I gave all of them numbers, and I'm having them pick randomly.
Alright, so...
Augustus!
Augustus! This was gonna be fun to talk about.
Big guy, big guy. Okay, yeah. So after the factory, which we've seen, he's a little thinner and covered in chocolate, and he's eating his fingers.
No, stop eating your fingers.
But I taste so good.
Stop it, or else I'll kill you.
That didn't happen.
Yes, it did. We just didn't see it because you were too busy looking at Violet.
What?
Or, no, like when Violet and her mom came out of the factory.
Oh.
We go to look at them, and then we just don't see.
Oh, I thought you meant something else.
Oh, no.
Okay, so when Augustus leaves, do you think he changed at all?
Probably not much. Frankly, just...
Like, probably just, like, more careful about how he eats, not what he eats.
Yeah, and maybe he's a little paranoid around pipes.
Yeah. So...
Other than that... Probably not really.
His mom will be a little bit more on him about that, but I don't think he'll listen.
And also, I don't know how good she'll be about that, because we can clearly see she's clearly struggled with weight a little bit in her life.
As his father.
Yes. Not necessarily directly calling her fat, of course. Don't hit me.
No. But the thing is, Augustus is gonna stay like that. It's been...
Yeah.
As they say in the play, we've trained him from birth to be like this. So, once a kid goes through that, you kind of can't stop.
Yeah.
And that kid is going to suffer from diabetes.
Yeah, he's probably going to die by the time he's like 60 at the oldest.
So what do you think Augustus's career will be?
I could see him as a food critic.
But I think because he gives everything like a positive review, he's not going to be taken seriously.
Like, I love your food. Please, or no, this is probably what he'll do as a food critic. I'm not sure what I think about that. Please get me some more so I can make up my mind. And just keep doing that.
And his lowest rating will be like a 4-star thing.
Yeah, just because he'd eat it no matter what. But he'd always just like ask for more so he could make up his mind on whether he likes it or not.
And then because of this, no one will take him seriously as a food critic, so he'll try to open up his own restaurant where, you know, there's like the thing in France where the chefs will take a little bit out of the meal and then taste it.
Yeah.
He eats the whole meal himself and then gives you like a little bit of a scrap.
Gives you like a sample maybe. Once you clean the plate.
You can't lick the plate. $500, please. So can't you picture that in like a Roald Dahl book? Like if Roald Dahl made a Where Are They At Now book, where it was like a food critic who's not taken seriously because he gives everything a positive review and just siphons food from them, and then a chef that eats his own food. I mean, can't you see that in a Roald Dahl book?
Yeah.
And then
if like each of the ticket winners got their own like spin-off sequel book.
Augustus would be the funniest.
Yeah, but probably the shortest.
Because he's not going to live very long. Do you think he'd have a family?
Maybe. I'm sure he could probably find some woman, probably pretty similar to his mom, who likes eating a lot and is like doesn't really mind him eating.
And ruining his restaurant.
Yeah. If anything, like, she'd like encourage that sort of thing almost.
And then what about their kids if they had any?
He wouldn't necessarily be like negligent, I think, but part of me thinks that he probably wouldn't necessarily be too involved with their lives. Like we did see, kind of more so in the original movie than the new one, but a bit in the new one. His dad doesn't seem to really be like too engaged in what's going on.
Like during the interview, he wasn't even really there. He was just kind of in the background working.
Yeah.
So he's probably kind of used to that father figure where he's always at the restaurant getting bigger while his wife is taking care of the kids. And
yeah,
I'm sure the kids would like him and stuff because he's the jolly fat man. Who wouldn't love him? It's like Santa Claus or Dom DeLuise or William Howard Taft.
Exactly.
But the thing is, they'd also probably know that he's got a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'd love his kids, of course.
Yeah, like...
But he's so immature and stuff, he wouldn't really know how to raise them.
Yeah.
He would not really be a good father.
Probably not.
Augustus, please don't reproduce.
It's probably likely that just because of his size, he might not be able to.
Yeah, he'd probably crush her, not getting any dark specifics, or not dark, but like adult specifics. He'd probably end up smashing her.
Yeah, if like he was actually like able to do it, like if the doctor allowed him to.
I'm sure like at some point, if he keeps getting on the road, by like age 40, he's gonna have a mobility scooter.
Yeah.
All right, so pick another number.
Let's do 5.
Veruca.
Okay. Veruca is probably interesting because she's the only ticket winner who doesn't like really show any like necessarily change when she comes out of the factory. It's Mr. Salt who's kind of changes his life procedure.
Exactly. So hard to say whether or not she'd actually reform.
If she did, it'd probably take a while for her to kind of grow out of her bratty behavior.
I'm sure it would happen eventually.
Yeah, probably by the time she was actually like completely grown up.
Like, say she's 11 at the time, it'd probably be like when she's 14, 15, something like that.
Yeah, maybe around there. But yeah, her earlier teen years and her later preteen years, she'd probably be pretty darn bratty and probably would, especially now that her dad is a lot more strict and is not just a doormat letting her walk all over him, she'd probably kind of like act like she hated him a lot just to kind of like, or like just like yell at him and stuff.
To kind of toy with his emotions to see if he really means it, but he does.
Yeah. And also just kind of to just try and get what she wants still. Like,
but then eventually I think she's going to realize either just how bad she was or just how that's not going to work.
yeah.
Because somewhere in the new one, because this is the new one we're talking about, there is a sweet, happy little girl inside who's trying to get out, but her upbringing just kind of holds her back.
It's more like, she, like, shows the sweet little, like, daddy's girl, but just, like, when she doesn't get what she wants, she's like, I'm mad now.
Which I'm sure that'll get severely toned down at some point.
Right, yeah.
But I think that, of course, the sweet, pampered girl will always be kind of who she is.
Yeah. And I feel like she'll probably always kind of have a little bit of that. If I don't get what I want, I'll be upset. But it won't be like, I'll be mad or anything. Like, if anything, like, more like, I'll just, like, if things don't go the way I think they should go, not necessarily like, I want this, I want that, but it's like, oh, this, I feel like this really should have happened. Like, my team should have won the football game, but they didn't. What a bummer. And, like, not that
But
specific.
she'd be a bit more boisterous about it than most other people.
Yeah, not that specifically, but, like, yeah. She'd be, and not necessarily, like, angry and pouty, but more just, like, stressed, I guess you might say, if something wasn't going her way when she was like an adult or something.
Or when she and her husband have a fight or something, again, like I said in the last one, what they said in Meet the Robinsons, when you have a fight, she's always right. Even when she's wrong, she's right.
Exactly.
Whoever gets married to Veruca is going to have to put up with a lot.
Yeah.
He'd better really love her.
Mm-hmm. I can almost kind of see if she didn't change too much, and kind of stayed mostly the same, but like if you just had like Veruca in an adult's body, like it'd have to be probably someone who is like just completely desperate and has probably been like dumped by like tons of other girls.
Guys.
No, I'm talking about the husband.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, he'd be completely desperate and would just, like, and would kind of, like, buy into that, like, if I pamper her enough, she'll love me, or something.
And that'd be sad. That'd be even worse than Mr. Salt.
Yeah.
Because, like, in the new one, in the old one, the Mr. Salt thing was always just kind of for comedy, but in the new one, they actually kind of do delve into the psyche of Mr. Salt's behavior, which I did mention with the backstory that Tim Burton told everyone about. And they actually did kind of work into the film if you pay attention. Mm-hmm.
Even just kind of right down to, like, his expressions a lot of the time.
And it'd be even worse if it was, like, her husband.
Yeah.
Which, and of course, given the way we say the inevitable change, how do you think she'd actually end up with someone then? Given the inevitable change.
It'd probably be, like, similar, like, although it just would be, like, a little different. The guy wouldn't be just, like, totally desperate, but there'd probably just be some resemblance there of kind of a similar relationship where, like, but like more just relegated to if something bad's going on, if she's specifically upset about something, he's just like, okay, I'll do, like, let her do anything or get anything for her to cheer her up. But it wouldn't be like an ongoing thing. It's like, okay, I need to keep getting everything for her and doing everything for her.
It'd be kind of like most rich relationships kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
Or just actually any kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Let's hope they actually really fall for each other, otherwise it could get rocky.
Yeah, definitely.
And what about...
We're not talking about Balboa.
And, this is going to seem a little sexist, but it's going to make sense since you explain it, but I think her occupation will be housewife, or as she'd prefer, mansion wife.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Veruca doesn't really seem like the working girl.
No, not so much. Like, maybe, like, she'd try to get a career as, like, an actress or something and be, I don't know, but, like, yeah, and get some sort of, like, fame from that.
But I'm sure she'd rather just sit at home or shop in the mall all day.
Yeah.
And then, do you think Veruca would have kids?
I think so.
Mm-hmm. And how would that go?
Well, we did see that she's kind of got a fondness for, like, cute things. She's got kind of, like, cutie side to her with, like, the squirrel. She wanted a squirrel.
Or an Oompa Loompa.
Or an Oompa Loompa.
Hamsters, horses.
Right, things. Ponies, yeah. So, I could see her kind of, like, having kids and kind of being a little bit clingy, maybe, sort of, kind of.
And maybe inadvertently starting the cycle over.
Right, yeah, and starting to kind of spoil them without even really realizing it.
I think that might be how Mr. Salt got suckered into it.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
But hopefully, I also did point this out earlier when we were talking about this, Mrs. Salt was also to blame because she didn't do anything to stop it.
Yeah, in fact, she had, like, 1 or 2 lines in the original version. I don't remember what she says, but something just like, oh, you better do something about that. Also, her name was Henrietta, and his name was Henry in the old movie.
Yes.
Which I find it funny how in all the, like, couples' names are the same, like George, Georgina, Joe, Josephina. Yeah. It's all, like, the same name.
But in the new one, she's just like, when she's screaming, I want my golden ticket, she's just kind of like...
Looks at him like,
okay.
Like, this is on you. Like,
yep,
and also, in the newer one, she is noticeably a lot younger than Mr. Salt. In the older one, they look to be around the same age. But
that or Salt just grays earlier, because I know
Yeah,
a lot of
that's
people
true.
do that, especially
especially people like him who are kind of like constantly under a lot of stress.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, like, people
Right.
who are in charge of big companies or even countries, they gray faster.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Obama. When he came into office, he was looking like really fine and young, but now he's, no offense, dude, but you're kind of looking a little aged.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't blame him. That's a very stressful job.
Yeah. Like, not like old, like he looks like he's like an old man or something, but he looks like he's aged a bit.
Yeah.
And also,
well, then again, that happens to all of them.
Right, yeah.
So someone like Mr. Salt, that's probably happened to him, especially not just a high-quality job with the country's biggest nut producer, but a daughter like this.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that has to have a tie into it. But
Right.
anyways, what were we saying about Mr. Salt? Miss Salt. Oh yeah, so she just kind of let it happen.
Yeah.
But hopefully whoever Veruca ends up with won't let that happen.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're going to have Veruca 2.0. Which I feel like could almost be kind of said for a lot of the characters. They kind of, if they have their own kids, they probably would kind of adapt to a lot of what their parents raised them like, and then kind of their kids would be raised in a similar way to them, and then eventually we'd have like 5 more ticket winners who are like the same as the first one.
And it's like Charlie has to find an heir, and then all the ticket winners are their kids, and then when the ticket winners go back, they have like post-traumatic stress disorder about what happened.
Yeah, that'd actually be really funny to see. Like, they go in the chocolate room and Augustus starts having like a meltdown or
I need to write something for this.
That'd be so funny.
I mean, would you guys want to see that?
Yeah, let us know.
I mean, I'm not really that much for fan fiction, although me and Rowan from the Loud House musical are making one just kind of for fun about Crocker, and it's going pretty fun, but I don't know, would you guys kind of want to see something like that? I don't know, just like a little fun project.
That might be kind of interesting. Yeah, let us know.
Anyways, so hopefully Veruca will land a person, but of course we know Augustus would want someone like his mom.
Yeah.
But, and also another little thing on Augustus, that thing could change too because it's all on the mom, because he's not going to really be there very much.
Right, yeah.
So, who do you think Veruca would look for?
Someone rich.
Someone very polite and suave.
Yeah.
Probably someone like Daddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some along those lines. Someone who'd, I wouldn't quite, because, of course, as we said, inevitably she'll go through a lot of maturing.
Of course. Well, of course she's a kid, so...
Right, yeah.
Of course she will.
Which I feel like that's another thing that's just a little bit twisted about Wonka in general, although this is just kind of another thing you love about Dahl's writing, is like the fact that like all these kids are kind of so like bad is a lot of it just draws from the fact that they're kids and they're immature. Like,
but then again, that's how he tried to scare the kids who are reading it into not being like them.
Right, yeah. But anyways, as I was saying, since of course she'd have gone through maturing, I wouldn't necessarily like say she'd want a man who'd be willing to do whatever at all times for her, but someone who wouldn't be completely opposed to...
Someone who at least listens to her.
Someone who would be willing to do things for her, but wouldn't necessarily do everything for her.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Now pick a number.
Let's go with 2.
Voldemort! A.K.A. Mike TV. or Voldemort. Pretty much the same person.
Yeah, Mike TV is like the child version of Voldemort who's just like not evil, but he's just a terrible person.
So basically Tom Riddle as a child.
Yeah.
That's basically what he was.
Yeah, he's not like evil necessarily, like, I want to take over the world. He's just a jerk and he hates things.
Because I know you haven't seen Half-Blood Prince quite yet. Don't worry, people. Right when we're done with this, I'm showing him Chamber of Secrets. If you remember from Half-Blood Prince, when Tom Riddle was in the orphanage, he was kind of like Mike. He was very gloomy, he was very dark, he hated the people around him, and when Dumbledore came in, he didn't really want to talk to him.
And then
he kind of looked like Mike.
Whenever he would talk to Dumbledore, Dumbledore would just say, Mumbler! Seriously, I can't understand a word you're saying.
Seriously, I cannot understand a word you're saying. Avada Kedavra! And they kills him. But the thing is, he even
and then he shrinks him. Is there a shrinking spell?
Yes, there is.
Oh, how convenient.
There's
Is there a getting sent up a pipe, blowing up like a blueberry, and falling down a garbage chute spell?
There's a gravity spell, there's
Okay.
a inflation spell,
Okay.
and there's a ascension spell.
Okay. Fair enough.
So yeah, all that could happen. Just put Augustus into the Black Lake and
Yep.
make him shoot up. Just paint Violet blue and give her that, and then just make the falling spell of Veruca off of the tower. That'd be horrible.
Yeah.
So anyways, Voldemort here. Okay, Hay and Violet are gonna be a little weird because as they left the factory, they have pretty much permanent changes.
Yeah, like...
So we're going to take a little bit of a window as if they did and if they didn't. If this was or was not permanent. Let's start with was. His life would be ruined.
Yeah, he would, like, not be able to do anything. He'd be, like, stuck at home, having other people, like, tend to him for the rest of his life.
He'd be like a circus freak.
And they're,
Although, of course, as Wonka says in the book, every basketball team in the country would want him, but he'd be terrible because he's so flat and weightless. He can't do anything.
Yeah, and, like, when he was, getting out of the factory, he was moving so slowly because his legs were so long and he was so flat. He has, like, so much wind resistance that he's just like...
And his face was kind of like, oh.
You could, yeah, barely see his face, but just for that little bit, he didn't look happy.
He's like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say he didn't deserve it. Oh, he deserved it.
Oh, yeah.
But,
yeah, he actually could not, well, I suppose he could get married, but once he got married, he couldn't do anything, like, it just, like, wouldn't work.
it had to be one of those really sweet stories you hear about where the woman loves the guy so much, and even though he has got the disability, all day she just waits on him hand and foot. But then again...
But it's Mike, who would, okay, so, like, if he was, like, a really sweet guy and that was just a tragic accident...
Like the old Mike.
Right, exactly, like... Although that wasn't necessarily an accident per se, but it just he was a sweet kid. But yeah,
like it was the old Mike, and that happened.
Right.
I'm sure he could find someone. He was a really sweet guy.
Yeah.
Voldemort, on the other hand, or Mike TV, as we'll start calling him, just because
Yeah.
that's pretty much that is who he is. If Mike won't,
Because, I mean.
And you can better believe, when he's flat and disabled like that, you better believe he gets an extra spirit of entitlement.
Yeah, like...
You're just making him worse, Wonka. Because let's face it, Mike isn't going to learn anything.
Yeah, he's so, like, stubborn and all that
He's probably just going to get traumatized whenever he watches VH1. That's probably it.
Yeah. And, but, like, he'll be just, like, more like, hey, why aren't you, like, helping me right now? And he'd probably blame his dad for, like, the whole thing, I feel like.
I'm sure he
Yeah,
does.
he'd be like, you caused this. And he'd probably at some point try to sue Wonka.
Yeah. And then, if it wasn't permanent, he'd sue Wonka, for sure.
Yeah, he still would.
He would never find love. No kids, no love.
Like,
nothing.
Yeah, I feel like he'd be kind of one of those people that, like, just kind of, like, basically, like, doesn't even live out of the life. They'd basically, like, he'd probably, like, find some, like, job he did at home, like, programming a video game
like
or
beta
something.
testing.
Right, yeah.
And just work all day.
Uh-huh.
And just spend all day immersed into that. Doesn't call home. Doesn't.
He'd be, like, a less disgusting, disturbing version of the creepy basement guy.
From Dorby's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be almost a little bit like that, only probably instead of that disturbing, depressing frown, he'd just be kind of like this.
Glaring. Or like a VR headset or something.
Right, yeah.
He would never bother with friends, never bother with lover or family. Family would never hear back from
Probably,
him.
like, yeah, as soon as he was old enough, he'd be out of the house and then never contact them ever. And until, like, maybe, if even this, eventually, if somehow he landed, like, in jail or something, and, like...
Or he just needed a loan.
Yeah.
Because, another thing I made a joke about this is, because given the timeline of when this happened, this would make sense, is he gets a job at Google and gets transferred to the YouTube copyright division, so he's the one who goes around on YouTube giving people false claims just for kicks.
Yeah.
So Mike TV is the reason why I can't make much money off of VeggieTales Abridged.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike!
It's not like I care.
And
it's stupid anyways.
If he just so happened to find a girl who would like him, he would not be a good father.
Yeah. Or a good husband. Like, I feel like if he did get a girl, it would probably be just, like, based off, like, a look thing. Like, ooh, wow.
She's hot.
Yeah, and, like, there wouldn't really be any connection there. There'd just be, like, oh, I love you, you love me, because we're both attractive.
Yeah, or maybe...
And since we're both attractive, nothing can go wrong in our relationship.
Yeah, Gaston, that's correct. I mean, say what you will about, like, Veruca. I'm sure she'd probably be a good wife. Augustus would be something.
Yeah.
At least he'd be something warm and fluffy to come home to at night. But Mike would be so distant, I can imagine they'd just leave.
He'd probably be intentionally, like, neglectful. Because I feel like this is kind of another thing, kind of like I was talking earlier, how, like, a lot of them would adapt to how their parents raised them. We kind of see that to some extent, not to a huge extent, but Mike's parents weren't super involved in his life and kind of just let the TV do the job.
Yeah, big old daddy TV was there for Mike.
Yeah, and Mike would almost just be like, that's just kind of how it works, so...
Here you go.
Yeah. Although he probably wouldn't let them have the TV because he'd be watching it.
He'd probably give them their own TV.
He'd probably be like the guy who's like,
or he has the kids watch it with
like
them.
the dad that doesn't let you play video games because he's playing video games.
Yeah, or he probably either gives them their own, or he has them play a co-op game and crushes them in all of them or something.
Yeah.
He would, and like, he wouldn't go to any of their games or anything. He wouldn't go to any school recitals.
And if
he'd get dragged there, if anything.
If he did, I could actually so picture this as actually be kind of funny. If somehow he did kind of have like a somewhat of a caring relationship with his kids to any extent whatsoever, and even if he didn't, just being as stubborn as he is, like at like a little league game, the umpire makes like a bad call, he'd like freak out at the umpire, even like if he really didn't care, just because he was so frustrated that the umpire made such a bad call.
Or he was just so frustrated overall that this one little thing just made him unleash it all.
Yeah, and he just starts yelling at this umpire.
He starts threatening him with like a bat.
Yeah.
I could actually see Mike ending up in jail, to be honest.
Yeah.
Probably he could probably be smart enough to work around that. So like he could use mind tricks on the cop or something to get out. This is not the Mike TV Voldemort you're looking for. But he'd probably be smart enough to he could be a supervillain.
He really kind of could be.
It's Roald Dahl. It's his universe. Anything's possible.
Yeah. If we're sticking to like Earth universe, probably not a supervillain, but
a Nigerian prince at least.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say like criminal of sorts, but like the kind that would like go to jail for like having like abused like the waiter for not getting his clothes in time or food in time, but like not necessarily like prison for Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. And
because he just wouldn't care enough to do that.
Probably would be kind of like Porter Stansberry, the guy who tells you that the United States is going to collapse this year and the only way to save yourself is to buy his newsletter, but when you get the newsletter, it just tells you to invest in gold and buy a farm. He'd probably be that guy. Like, he makes a bunch of pyramid schemes. Mm-hmm. Because let's face it, he'd do that, so...
Yeah. Alright, well, we've got 2 more.
Let's just go with Violet.
Okay. We can save Charlie for last. Violet, I feel like... Okay, well, first of all, if her effects are permanent...
She'd be a gymnast.
Yeah, that's really... There's nothing else she could possibly be.
So that's basically where it ends with that, because either way, it's going to be the same after this.
Yeah.
So... Now, at first, she and her mother had a very eerie relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not eerily close, but just eerie that she's like a clone.
Yeah, it's... Like, they... Right down to, like, the actresses they got to play them, like, they look similar. They look like a mom and daughter.
Have you seen the picture of Violet these days? She looks just like her.
I know. And also, another thing... The actress who played Violet, like, I noticed this when I watched the movie, but, like, just kind of like a little bit, it's like, huh, kind of. But when I looked at the pictures of her now, she looks exactly, and I mean exactly, like my cousin.
Weird.
Yeah. And the actress who played Mrs. Beauregard has the same name as that same cousin.
Funny. Anyways, so, Violet... Now, after what happened with the experimental gum.
Yeah. I feel like, first of all, she's done with gum. Like, no matter whether it's permanent or not, she's done with gum.
Yeah, I don't think because she wasn't chewing at the end of the, when she got out of the factory, so either she lost the gum or she tossed it.
Yeah.
Or she might have just took it with her to, like, put in a little display case for, like, remember those days?
Yeah, but part of me thinks she probably wouldn't want to be reminded of that.
Or just like, well, she'd probably just put it on a like trophy wall or something.
Yeah.
And then just tuck it in the back.
Yeah.
Or maybe put it inside the little cup.
Mm-hmm.
But then after she gets out of the factory, her relationship with her mom...
is probably be a bit different at this point. Probably a bit strained and not... Yeah, it'd change for the worse. Violet would definitely have a bit of disdain for her mom. Especially like when they get out, like, look, Mom, I'm much more flexible now. Yes, but you're blue.
And I think that would kind of be the instigator for making her wake up.
Yeah, that'd be like, okay, lady. And I feel like almost, like, because before, her mom drove her to be competitive and obsessed with winning because that's how she was, so it's like... win for me, and that's kind of what drove her to be so competitive in the past. But I feel like she'd still kind of drive her to be competitive, but now it'd be like, I need to be better than my mom at everything.
Yes. And because she's quite clearly a single mom, because she has a crush on Wonka and Mr. Salt, it's clear that her parental relationship will take a serious dive, and that'll probably transfer into her later life. What do you think her career would be if the effects were not permanent?
Like a soccer mom or PE teacher type thing.
I could also kind of see her, like, running, like, either working at or running some kind of, like, fitness club.
Yeah, something athletic-like.
Yes. But her relationship, like, marital relationship, I don't think it'll last.
Yeah.
Because if, her relationship with her mom was like that, and her mom's relationship with presumably her grandmother was like that, then I'm sure history is doomed to repeat itself.
Yeah, I feel like this whole drive to succeed at everything is
I think that's a Beauregard tradition.
Yeah.
And judging by that there's no Mr. Beauregard in this version, I don't think he's dead. I think he's, like, in another town. I think he left. Or they just split, and I think, unfortunately for Violet, that might happen again.
Unfortunately, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked.
So then, and of course do you think, if she did have a daughter who eerily looked like her, do you think she'd remember what her mom did and try to counteract it, or do you think she'd just inadvertently go back to what happened?
Well, we kind of, just barely kind of could see some sort of kind of change in Violet. Kind of at the end, because, like, when she comes out of the factory all flexible and whatnot, she's kind of, like, looking at it kind of in a more positive light, like...
But she never would have done before.
Yeah, she would have been like, now I have to be blue. This is dumb. But, yeah, like, she definitely kind of is showing some signs of, like, change, like, and, like, saying that she's much more flexible now is probably double meaning. Like, she's much more flexible to life and having things change and not being the best at everything. So I feel like she probably... Hang on a sec as I reposition my body to get closer to the microphone without harming myself. Anyways, as I was saying, I feel like she probably went through the most change, like, right after the movie. Like, overall, by the end of, like, their lives, I'd say probably Veruca probably went through the most change. But within kind of the movie and, like, the direct events following it, probably Violet was the only one who really changed significantly. Because Charlie didn't really change. He really didn't have much to change.
Yeah, Wonka changed more than him.
Yeah.
And so another little thing I kind of want to bring up about Violet is I do think that the mother-daughter thing would repeat, but I think she'd also kind of be the single mom who works really hard to, you know, support the family and to care for her daughter, but it's just not enough.
Right, yeah.
But not out of, like, maliciousness, it's just that she can't work any harder.
Right, yeah. So, it'd probably repeat itself, but kind of in a different way.
And then who knows, maybe that'll break the chain.
Maybe, yeah.
So, before we get on to Mr. Bucket, aka Charlie, I wanted to bring up something I just kind of thought of the past few days. In this, I know for a fact this has to be true, because this cannot be a coincidence. When they're going to the factory, their costumes for that, what they're wearing represents their personalities. Right, because Augustus is the red and white striped shirt, kind of like what you see on a lot of candies. Violet's is blue, kind of representing what's going to happen to her. Veruca's is the fancy schmancy thing, clearly indicating her spoiled. Mike's is black and has a flaming skull on it. I think that's enough.
Right,
and then
yeah.
Charlie's is all kind of raggedy and worn.
Yeah.
So it kind of explains stuff about their personalities and their upbringing and even fates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
I just kind of noticed that a few weeks ago. Which I think was kind of clever. That cannot be a coincidence.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, you could kind of see with Veruca and Charlie, it kind of just comes from their background and, like, couldn't be any different, because if you've got, like, a rich girl...
She's not going to wear, like...
Right.
She's not going to wear sackcloth.
And Charlie doesn't
going to
really...
wear a tux.
He doesn't really have much of a say in that matter. And, but... And then you could also bring the fact into, Mike definitely has a darker style to himself. And Augustus and Violet's are definitely a lot more just kind of symbolic of what specifically happens. And just how kind of obsessive they are. And as well of just kind of that stripe, I feel like is just kind of pretty traditional German. Kind of thing.
And it also makes them look bigger, because another
yeah.
fashion tip for people, horizontal stripes make you look wider.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that's the case.
Yeah. I like horizontal stripes. But not like, just like those kind of stripes. It's just like one color, one color, one color. I like kind of like spread out stripes, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Charlie, of course, the Great Glass Elevator was presumably canon after this.
Right.
Which is... Okay, my quick thoughts on the book. I love Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Glass Elevator is... not Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
It's weird.
It's very weird. It's like alien Oompa Loompas and then Snozwanglers and, it's... For what it is, it's good, but as a sequel to my favorite Roald Dahl book, and everyone's favorite Roald Dahl book, I presume.
Yeah, pretty much.
It wasn't a good follow-up, and I'm very scared of what Charlie in the White House would have been.
Yeah.
Because that, on paper, didn't sound very good. But Charlie Bucket, after the events of Glass Elevator, I presume he'd have a lot more misadventures with Wonka.
Right.
But then after Wonka's passing, would take over the factory. But how would this work? What would happen?
Would he get married at any point?
I presume Wonka would have him live some sort of life of celibacy like he did, because, you know, family's getting away the chocolate.
Right, yeah, but...
And then probably knowing if they did Glass Elevator, he'd have a bunch of flashbacks to, like, his estranged wife instead, and then at the end they reunite him with her.
Yeah. Which, of course, we saw in the newer movie, even though kind of from this point onwards was a little bit iffy, but in the new movie we did see that Wonka sort of changed his opinion on kind of family.
Yeah. But does that include living a life of celibacy? Because the thing is, he's going to live with Wonka. He's not going to school. He's not really going out. He's going to be in the factory pretty much all the time, so he might not have the chance.
Yeah, I feel like he's...
But maybe because his family is there, specifically, like, his mom and Grandpa Joe, I think, would really push towards it. I think they'd probably want him to at least try to find someone.
Right, yeah. If he did,
I'm sure they'd be happy. I'm sure they'd be like the Buckets, just a very well-operating family.
Yeah.
And another little thing I thought of towards the end of our original conversation is, if Charlie has a kid and the kid is misbehaving and does something wrong while living in the factory, are the Oompa Loompas going to sing about it? Just like, it's like, say the kid's name is Bob Bucket. Bob, go to your room. No, Dad, I don't want to. Boom, da, da, boom, da, da, oompa, loompa. And they just start singing, go to your room, embrace your doom, or something like that. They just sing about... Obey your parents, or even better, do what your parents say, do what your parents tell you.
Yeah.
Grumps reference.
I kind of think I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's the Oompa Loompas.
Do you think the Oompa Loompas would like Charlie?
They seem to like him in the movie for the most part. We don't really see them necessarily directly interact with him, but they clearly don't show any, like, unhappiness with him like they do with Mike.
Yeah, and I think they actually might like him more than Wonka, because Wonka's a little unhinged and insane.
They seem to really like Wonka, I feel like, though.
I do, too, but also, the kind of the look they get, the psychiatrist gave when you're really good, he's like, yep.
It was kind of like a look of approval, like, yeah.
I think they might like him a little more.
Maybe, yeah.
But the thing
he's a little more sane.
Wonka went insane because he was so enclosed.
Right.
If this happens to Charlie, will he also go insane? If he lives a life of celibacy, absolutely. Because he will outlive his parents, surely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could kind of see him... And I feel like Charlie would probably grow up to be a lot more like the wilder Wonka.
I think, actually, yeah, he would grow up to be a lot like that.
Yeah. In fact, maybe there's this timeline going on where the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory takes place after the Charlie and the
How would that work?
I don't know. And all the kids just happen to have the same names and meet the same downfall.
And another little thing before we go, Wonka. How would he go on?
Well, hard to say, because he's been able to grasp the concept of family. He's met his dad, but then he goes back to the factory and presumably stays there. Don't think he'd probably go out too much.
Except for, like, glass elevator.
Right, yeah.
So he'd probably just be the same.
Yeah, maybe slightly saner, just kind of being surrounded by other actual people would probably be good for him.
To be fair, there's Grandma Georgina and Grandpa George in there.
Yeah.
That won't help.
But still, just kind of being around, like, Charlie, and Grandpa Joe, and Mr. and Mrs. Bucket, I feel like that would probably kind of bring him down to earth a little more, kind of get him a little more in terms with reality, just a little.
What I want to know is how the Oompa Loompas interact with the Bucket family, because they're living there too.
They seem
I'm sure they'd like them.
They seem to at least be comfortable with narrating the story of their lives.
Yeah, that's true.
Life had never been sweeter.
And one more thing. If Charlie didn't win, say the other kids won, so we'll go and see how it would have happened. If Augustus won,
the factory would probably close because he would have eaten all of its, all of their stock.
I can just picture, because Augustus is living there, and he just Wonka comes in one morning. So, Augustus, are you ready? He goes into the chocolate room. It's all bare. And Wonka has this horrified look on his face. Just slowly closes the door. Click. Turns around. I made a terrible mistake.
Yeah. He, like, yeah, like, the pipe is, like, or, like, Augustus is, like, at the top of the pipe using it as a straw.
Just funneling it in his mouth. And then he'd probably, like, die or something. And so if Violet won, she'd actually be a competent person, but the thing is, she'd probably be, like, a really shrill, uptight CEO businesswoman type and kind of run a very tight ship with the Oompa Loompas, not letting them be kind of mischievous or fun-loving or anything.
Yeah.
Just kind of make them her corporate drones.
Yeah, and I feel like she'd probably have kind of a bit where it's like, okay, I seriously have to run a factory to make candy. Like, I feel like she'd probably, like, try to seek out something better.
Or at least try to be the best.
Right, yeah.
If Veruca won.
Huh. Well, she would enjoy having the squirrels and the Oompa Loompas.
Yes, probably it would just be what happened, like, when Charlie refused the offer, and just, like, the sales kind of declined because there's not very many ideas. And then eventually Wonka isn't really a household name anymore, it'd just be kind of there. Yeah. And then if Mike took over...
And we already brought this up before.
He becomes a nightmare. He's a supervillain.
He would completely modernize everything. Like, okay, so first of all, he'd probably, use the Oompa Loompas as much more of an army than a workforce.
And, like, they're marching around the factory going, Oompa Loom, Loompa, Oompa Loom, Loompa.
Exactly. And he'd have probably, like, machines completely making all the chocolate. It would become completely... he'd just abandon the chocolate and use, like,
Or he'd probably sell the chocolate to gain money for his other advances.
The Wonka vision he'd use for an actual teleporter.
The squirrels he'd use to be his servants.
Right.
The gum he'd use to, like, send the army to fight the Islamic State.
Or to, like, just... If... I could totally see him, like, if he's just, like, there's someone he didn't like, or like, well, okay, that's about everyone. But someone he really didn't like, and he's like... Here, I wanna... Or he's like, here, take some gum. He takes the gum and blows up.
What a monster.
Yeah. And it's like... And Wonka's like, we should probably get him up to the juicing room to squeeze him. Nah. Just let him blow up.
Or he'd probably go, sure, squeezing room. But then he intentionally puts in the calculations wrong, so it squeezes it all into, like, his head or something, and it makes it even worse, and then it just pops. Well, you said squeeze him like a little pimple. Pimples pop. Don't look at me like that or you're next. And then you probably take, like, a hostile takeover of the factory and toss Wonka out in the snow.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mike is evil.
Yeah.
If you want more proof, go to our old video. Well, not old video, but our last one.
Yeah.
Still very proud of that one. That was a lot of fun. I told you we'd do this again.
Yep.
Who knows, if we think of any other topics, we might do this again.
Yep.
And hey, if you guys want to see that return to the factory or whatever, it's always a possibility.
Oh no! It's a chocolate room! Some pipes! Oh! And the Oompa Loompas start singing. No!
So people, thank you for bearing with us during this time, and we'll see you later.
Ta-ta!